We are here today with Professor Johan Galtung. He is the founder of Peace and Conflict Studies as an academic discipline, and we are going to talk today about his latest book. It's 50 Years, 25 Landscapes Explored by Transcend University Press. Professor Galtung, could you please explain to us what the book is about? What the book is about, the theme of the book.
Well, let me put it this way. You see, there is 50 years of work behind it. It started in 1958, and the idea had come to try to do some serious work in what to me seemed to be a gap in social science. Actually, two gaps: conflict studies and peace studies. And I was 27 at the time when I started, and you then run up against a number of problems, and it's called 25 Intellectual Landscapes Explored. Now, to make it very clear what that means, let me just try to indicate what chapter 1 was about. This was during the Cold War. We are in 1958. And I didn't feel that any region like the West or the socialist bloc had any monopoly on peace. They were both talking quite a lot about peace, and it didn't sound very convincing to me. So the idea was that peace studies had to be transnational. It had to transcend the division of the world into states, into blocs, and things of that kind. So let me put it this way: the chapter 1 is about liberating the peace concept from geography, from the state system.
From the politicians, in other words.
In a sense, yes. Precisely, in particular from the statesmen.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that if after you have killed 44 million people and you sign a treaty that's called peace sounded to me absurd. So if you then think like that, where would you then root the peace concept? And I was thinking something like this, that one way of rooting it would be in human beings themselves, and that peace is fulfillment. And fulfillment comes closer to a religious concept. But that becomes too individualistic, too centered. So I became interested in the other, let us say, fault lines than territory and politicians, let's say between genders. Peace is harmony between genders.
Mm-hmm.
Peace is harmony between generations. And it is equity between classes. So there were many places to put the peace concept. And I think finally I came up with the idea that the basic point about peace is equity. That there is something struggling, some kind of forces contradicting each other.
So, Professor Galtung, what you are saying is that peace is not simply absence of war or of violence, right? It expands throughout society and human endeavors.
Right, to take the gender, its absence of inequality, exploitation of women by men. And there are some very few societies where actually the opposite is taking place. Exploitation of men by women. It's equity. And it's also equity inside yourself, to say that you have different inclinations. Now, if you can balance those inclinations, you have more peace of mind. So it was that kind of very general peace concept, liberated from the politicians, as you said, liberated from the state system, that was interesting. So that's chapter 1 of the book. And when I say intellectual landscape explored, it's a landscape with all kinds of possibilities where you could say, this is where I want to plant a tree of peace.
What exactly do you mean by landscape?
An intellectual territory,
okay,
which is kind of abstract. So I mentioned the concept of fault lines. Now evidently humanity is cut through by the gender cleavage, by generation, by race, by class, by nation, by territory. That's a landscape. It's a landscape. And I'm interested in looking at it and to see where can I put peace into this. And then the idea came up, equity. A fault line divides humanity in two parts or more. Now, if you could have an equitable relation between them, I think I would put peace on that. And as you said, it goes much beyond just war and much beyond the state system. It becomes a much more general concept. And that's what I was interested in.
So, Professor Galtung, as inside academia, can you say that landscape, as I understand it, you have sociology, philosophy, mathematics, psychology, all of that. This is what would be another meaning for these landscapes.
Precisely. It would be.
Yeah.
But it could also be concepts like nature, culture, structure.
Okay.
And it could be conflict. So it's a question, a landscape is the way you try to come to grips with a problem, with a phenomenon. And then you try to explore it, and you try to find the essence. And to say something which to me is important, I use the word landscape, because the most interesting points are usually the white points on the map, the unexplored points. The unexplored points where you had combinations that you never thought of before, that could be interesting. So, for instance, we found relatively quickly that there was no science called conflictology. It was missing. There was psychology of conflict, sociology of conflict, international relations of conflict, but there was no general conflictology. So that became a basic point. What would a general conflictology look like? And so that's another chapter in the book. And the book has 25 of those, explored one after the other. And it's a kind of summary of 25 years, 25 such landscapes and 50 years of that kind of work. If I should characterize the book with a simple sort of sentence, it would be its philosophy of social sciences. If you read the book, it's not a book about peace studies, but it's a book about how to think about peace studies. Mm-hmm. Kind of overflying the landscape with a helicopter and come to conclusions.
In a context of life experience.
Precisely.
Not of us against them, and because this is even peace journalism, right?
That would be a typical example. You find something missing. You find that journalism does not explore the underlying conflict. And journalism doesn't even have a concept of what peace looks like. They know what violence looks like. So you don't have any peace journalism. So it's a white spot on the landscape. That would be the basic idea. Now, 25, you could add more, you can subtract some of them. And the book actually ends with 11 social sciences. And the point is, what could these 11 social sciences benefit from the kind of explorations that we had to do in order to start peace studies? Coming up with a lot of things, critique of Aristotle, for instance, the prominence and the importance of Taoism, and then you introduce that into sociology and economics, and you suddenly get a new way of looking at social sciences.
Interconnectedness.
Exactly.
Professor Galtung, thank you very much.
Sure.
I am Antonio Rosa from Transcend Media Service. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.